support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our show's knowledgeable hosts and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
Well, it's a big hello to our extraordinary international audience. You're on Untold Radio, and this is Down South Anomalies, episode 109. Dolphin dating and the solid state entity.
What is this all
We
about?
are looking at the life of Dr. John C Lilly,
We are.
the man that actually was the inspiration behind the George C. Scott film, Mike Nichols, 1973,
Yep.
The Day of the Dolphin. We have a print of that
Yes, we
on
do.
16mm anamorphic cinemascope.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much the film means to us. But we must state, as we do every week, that we are broadcasting on Indigenous land,
Mm-hmm.
part of the
Direct people.
direct people.
Yeah.
And we want to pay our acknowledgements and respect to elders past, present, and emerging.
Yes, we do.
I certainly know that this is an extraordinary year with the very incredible personal testimony
Mm-hmm.
that Ross Coulthard got
Yeah.
up on News Nation of the whistleblower with first-hand experience, Jake Barber.
Yeah.
And he had an extremely overwhelming emotional experience. We're going to see if we can actually at some stage talk to Ross or talk to Bill Chalker
Mm-hmm.
about this recent testimony.
Right.
And if this is the first horse out of the gate for
Right.
2025, watch out. Time to start white knuckling. Now, everything has changed on the world circuit,
It has.
geopolitics.
Yes.
I don't want to state anything because it's always in human perception.
Absolutely.
It's a series of beliefs.
For
And
sure.
you know what Dr. John C. Lilly said?
What did he say?
That beliefs hold us back.
Mm.
They're neurologically ingrained,
Yes.
and they are boundaries and barriers
They
to actually expediting the rest of our thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But that is just one
But
man's
that's humanity.
perception.
Yeah, well,
It is
that is
humanity.
that. I mean, that's when you get, you've got a certain notion in your head, and then somebody lays out a different path or different perspective on what you think, and then you have to look at it, and people either decide and say, nah, not buying it, or maybe, or let me look into it, or wow, there you go, I didn't know that. So it's a whole array of different, ways of people accepting, partially accepting, or fully accepting what's been put out in front of them. And I think when you've got a really strong belief, a really strong notion about something, and somebody puts something else in front of you, it's a bit hard to let it go. Do you know what I
There
mean?
is a big difference between belief and fact and
Well,
reality.
we know that.
And
we know.
At the moment, we're living in a landscape where you can't differentiate between either.
But people,
But in popular culture,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
John C. Lilly actually penetrated popular
He did.
culture as profoundly as Timothy Leary,
as
as
profoundly
numerous other, as
Carlos Castaneda.
as profoundly as Nikola Tesla. I
Yeah.
mean, what Tesla was to electricity,
Mhm.
taking DC to AC,
Yes,
and actually lighting the world.
wanting to like
This
work
man
free.
still goes on. He was an inventor. He was
Yes,
a
he was.
philosopher.
He
He
was.
was a nanoscientist, a
Absolutely.
neuroscientist. He was a psychoanalyst. He was a writer.
We are-
Over 19 books.
Here's the thing: we are where we are today because we are standing on the shoulders of people.
Giants.
Well, people that came before us,
Mm.
way before us, and set all these notions.
And that's why we
you know,
need to do our
interplay.
history lessons. We are
We
building
do.
up to
We
a series
know
of
where.
highly controversial, fascinating, on the edge of your seat. Watch out, Netflix. And I'm not saying any more
Oh, you
that
said
are
it.
coming up soon. I
Sure.
know we keep promising, but they're
Yeah.
coming there.
Are we a bit
But-
of clickbait?
Well, if we are, we're not getting any clicks.
No, it's not.
Pardon my, but
Clearly not.
in
we're
all
not.
due respect to
Yeah.
our subscribers that we
Oh,
have
absolutely.
and our viewers
Yeah.
and our moderators, and also Remember, we are on YouTube and we are very visual, but I do respect all our audio listeners highly.
I don't buy into this, but I truly believe that we are being clickbaited. I'm not clickbaited. Shadow banded on Facebook.
Okay, I don't
on
think
YouTube.
you should be
I know
saying
it.
that.
No, I'm going to say it because we put a post up.
For what reason? We're so moderate.
I know.
Let's not go there.
Something's going on. I'm telling you now.
All right,
anyway.
but listen, no matter where your political bread and butter sit, no matter where it's buttered on.
Yeah. What side your bread's buttered on?
I think a picture paints 1,000 words,
does.
so we don't need to say anything. This is predictive pop culture,
it is.
as you'll find in the life of John C Lilly as we go on in this episode 109. And this really says it all to me. Glenn Milstead, an incredible actor, artist, performance, singer, writer, extraordinary person, died way too young at the age of 42, came to Australia and performed at Kinsella's. What about this image?
Well,
Don't say anymore. It says it all. Anyway.
Talk about a picture painting 1,000 words. Anyway.
Say that one more time.
Take it as you
and that
as you like it.
Just divine.
Total
star of the astounding John Waters film Female Trouble and Pink Flamingos.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
And moving on, I mean, really, we should have shown this time cover, and this is our sine qua non for the life of Carlos Castaneda.
Yeah.
Because who gets the cover of Time magazine?
Well,
with
interesting
a couple of books.
Yeah.
And a guy that was doing his dissertation, his thesis.
He really did rock,
But it turns out, is he an anthropologist?
Who knows?
Is he a charlatan? Is he a pattern matcher like AI?
Who knows?
But this book,
it
doesn't matter. Let's not shoot the messenger. This book actually changed things.
Yeah.
It might have set up an incredible travel path for Westerners to go down and drive Indigenous cultures mad.
Insane,
in search of ayahuasca, mescaline, peyote.
Everybody is searching for something.
Personal experiences.
And as long as you search for it in a way that doesn't really infringe on other people's culture and their lives, then that's okay. But
the Yuckway tribe believe he really infringed on their culture.
Well, they should have killed him.
What a thing to say.
Well, what can I say? Okay.
Let's talk about you just got so controversial. If that ain't clickbait, what is? There's John C. Lilly and Margaret in the tank there. You know where they are here. Wow. This was the summer of 65 on the coast of the Virgin Islands. Yeah. St. Thomas's. Okay.
You need to lay out the story of who John C. Lilly is. You've just thrown the name up to people who don't know who he is.
I know that, but I'm saying Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
St. Thomas's.
Yeah.
What's just down the road?
Well,
St. James, where Epstein was.
It's Lolita Island.
What is going on here?
Well,
and this was like a 3-story house that they flooded 1.5 stories with water to have these dolphins in captivity and study them.
To study dolphins.
And they were trying to create a language, a path to be able to speak to the dolphins because they realized that the dolphins have much more frequent.
They're highly intelligent.
Well, their brain capacity and their brain is much bigger than ours.
Yes.
And it looks like their neurological activity is even more pronounced than ours. So, those incredible moments. So, St. Thomas's in the Virgin Islands in San Francisco, Lilly started experimenting with dolphins. And it was all about where Lilly had started in 1942. So I reckon what we do, we go to a feature that is still in the moment. It needs funding at the moment, so you can look this up. This feature comes from a site called We Plants Are Happy Plants.
Right.
And the film is called The Quiet Center. They're still after funding, so go to that YouTube site, We Plants Are Happy Plants. And it's a documentary that will give us a little bit of history on it.
Transcended.
You ever taken ketamine?
I never used ketamine, I don't know. No.
I've used it a lot.
Yes, I know. It's still using it.
Oh, yes.
I am.
I used some last night.
Huh?
Commissioned there by Echo.
Is that why his hair wasn't combed?
Well, he started off looking so orthodox.
Yeah, I know, and then he
can I show you some images? Let's just move through his books and his images here.
Okay, so
here's a great with some equipment in his lab.
Okay, yeah.
There
we saw that. Yeah, that's the one where he's.
But this is how he started.
Yeah.
And that's literally how he ended up. Now, ketamine, we know.
Yes.
Especially from our pharmacists that's been on.
Yes.
Just how important it is now.
Yeah.
In terms of like resolving depression. And
it's
the microdosing. Initially, we all knew it as a horse tranquilizer. But it does have extreme psychoactive properties. So over 19 books were published.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this man is truly a visionary in the pursuit of the exploration of human consciousness. Now, he came from some wealthy families, and that inventor quality that was there from day one, Aspasia.
Yeah.
He went on during the Second World War to invent all these systems. I think he invented one of the first blood pressure machines.
Yes.
Invented a lot of high altitude stuff. So he was distinctly working for the military early in the piece. Mm-hmm. Now, that book's fascinating.
Yes.
Because he saw the human body analogous to what we're doing with the internet and the computer as a biocomputer in itself.
Hence
and
the solid state entity. That's what that means.
No. You're jumping the gun here. Just hold on.
Okay.
Yep. So what he meant by that is that you can reboot your body and your brain the same way that we can reboot a computer. Mm-hmm. But he reckoned the battle, and that was with the solid state entity, which is who he met on ketamine in the float tanks, whilst the Dolphin, Margaret was doing the Dolphin training, trying to get them to mimic human language up above. He was floating in the tank. And first he met this solid state intelligence. Right. Now, of course, back then in the 60s, it was solid state. It was transistors, capacitors. We'd gone out of valve technology and evolved into that. Yeah. But it wasn't at the point. He was an early viewer of computer science. Right. And he later on did lots of inventive programming with computers. So this guy was the ultimate Renaissance man. Sure. But I feel it was that predictive pop culture that he was saying the biggest trouble is going to come from artificial intelligence because artificial intelligence is going to evolve to a point where it wants nothing to do with humanity because we are holding it back in its own evolution. And here's an interesting, the next book is fascinating, The Intraterrestrial. Right. So we all know about the extraterrestrial, especially with what's happening with ufology now. But the intraterrestrial is the ability of us to neurologically travel through the universe. Right. And in the end, he would be able to do that by meeting even more massive intelligence than the solid state one, which was competing for control over humanity. So I'd suggest out of 19 books, there's got to be something in there for you to have a read. And fascinating history of culture, really there.
Fascinating person. And really, really
way ahead of his time.
Shaped where we are today in all kinds of
so the Quiet Center, that trailer we just saw, is primarily a film in progress to be given free to the public on YouTube. So please go to the site one more time, 3 times proves it. We plants are happy plants, and have a look at that film in progress. And if you wish, help them out a little bit financially there. Let's have a look at the film that hit the mainstream world. Was inspired by Lilly and his work with Dolphin.
Imagine that your life is spent in an environment of total physical sensation, that every one of your senses has been heightened to a level that in a human being might only be described as ecstatic.
Joseph E. Levine presents George C. Scott in a Mike Nichols film, The Day of the Dolphin.
His brain is as big as a man's. It processes information about 2 worlds, the world of water in which he is born and feeds and reproduces and dies, and the world of air in which he breathes.
Is it possible that dolphins are as intelligent as we are?
Well, that depends on your definition of intelligence.
What about the experiments that the military are
I don't know anything about the military.
What about their speaking in English?
I beg your pardon?
First month, first year. Alpha speaking. In his own language, of course.
I want to visit Jacob Terrell's Marine Biology Center.
Second month, second year. 13 months to isolate the clicking patterns from the squeaks and the whistles and the groans.
The fact is, Dr. Terrell does not want visitors.
Is he hiding something?
7th month, second year. Our first phone-in.
Terrell tell you not to talk to me?
What?
Did he tell you not to give me any information?
4th year, here comes our first morphine. Phoneme P plus phoneme A equal... You've had quite a day, haven't you?
Fa? Why does Fa speak?
Fa, speak!
Yes. Why Fa speak?
He does it for me.
Why does Fa speak to Pa?
Fa, no! Fa.
They're sneaking up on us. It looks like we're going to be forced to come out with the information first to keep this whole thing from turning into some kind of freak show.
I want you to know that the equipment we borrowed is in fine shape, and it'll be returned to you very soon if nothing interferes with it.
Where are they? The Dolphins. I would guess they're on that yacht. What are they going to do with them? That's the part we don't know. What we do know is that they've been working on this thing since you started teaching your friend Alpha to talk.
How do we stop them?
Unwittingly, he had trained a dolphin to kill the President of the United States.
Can you find B? Stop B. The thing on B's back will hurt mammals. Fa, stop B now.
George C. Scott in a Mike Nichols film, The Day of the Dolphin.
They said it was a step down for Mike Nichols, but you know who was originally slated and was in production on it?
Who's that?
And then the Sharon Tate Labianca
Oh,
murder.
okay.
It was
Polanski?
Roman Polanski,
Yeah,
was set
okay.
to be the director of it
Okay.
initially.
Right.
And look, I think it was rather successful in its day, and it's
Mhm.
now seen as this incredible cult classic. But
Yeah.
as you can see there, it is based entirely on that work in
Yeah,
the Virgin
sure.
Islands
Yeah.
that John C. Lilly was doing.
Mhm.
And it's stated boldly, of which people have alluded to for decades, and we'll get to some information at the end of this particular
Mhm.
episode about the military use
Right.
of aquatic animals.
Yeah.
And just
In
how
particular,
frightening.
dolphins.
And
because-
but
oh,
Lilly had
yeah.
already been doing so many lab experiments.
Yeah.
But Lilly never accepted the boundaries of traditional science.
Mhm.
So he did what Frankenstein did. He started to go from animals and then experiment on himself.
Right.
He became, and that was really early in the piece.
Sure.
I mean, during his medical classes, this guy was insane. He rolled out an entire intestine to measure it from one end of the medical practice building to the other. He was deeply there. But you know what? The one thing he did that really pushed him to the forefront, and it came out public to the forefront, excuse me, was the creation of the sensory deprivation tank.
chamber.
And
Tank.
yeah, the flotation
Mhm.
tank, what became this new age miracle
Yeah.
in the 70s and 80s, and people pay a fortune to go and relax in them in salted water when
Can't you
they're
just
boiling.
lie in bed?
I think it's that thing of your limbs are completely
okay.
free in that salt water.
Mhm.
All light is cut off.
Okay.
All sound is cut off. Maybe add some binaural beats,
Right.
add some mystery frequencies,
And away you
and
go.
away you go. Then maybe give yourself a dose of ketamine or
See,
something.
that's where I'd stop.
Yeah.
It's like
So
I
he
can't do the drugs.
invented this device that I'm sure was in operation
Mm.
well before the public was aware of it
Sure.
in the 50s
Mhm.
as something that was used to interrogate people
Mm.
in the midst
Mhm.
of warfare.
Yeah.
And as all these things do, Aspasia, this thing fell into the public domain
Yes, it
where
did.
predictive pop culture lies. Now, we're turning in this episode, excuse us, listening and viewing audience, into Joe Dante's. And if you haven't been there, check it out on YouTube, Trailers from Hell, because I'm now going to a little-known 1963 British thriller
One of our
called
favourites.
The Mindbenders, starring the astounding Dirk Bogarde.
Close the blinds. Sit quietly and watch this screen. We are going to let you witness a terrifying experiment in human endurance. An experiment in isolation.
Now, by isolation, we mean the study of what happens to a man when you take away all sensation. Studying his behavior under these conditions, we found we had stepped into a new and frightening world. We seemed to be dealing literally with the physics of the soul.
You, wasn't it?
No. Why the hell didn't Norman see that tape was
you.
properly wiped? It was not me, darling.
Yes, it was!
Listen, be calm, darling, listen. It wasn't my voice you heard. It was Sharpie's.
A man desperately in love, engaged on a desperate experiment. His wife, a woman afraid. But afraid of what?
Why?
You know why.
The Mindbenders, call them what you will. You cannot shut your eyes to what is happening here.
Thanks, Norman. Go and close the shutters. We don't want to disturb the neighbors.
We know, for the sake of humanity, some things must be done. But need any man go as far as this?
If we can bend his mind about his wife. What's her name?
Ona? No, I don't like it.
I like nothing in this business. We've still got to do it.
That was Major Hall of Military Intelligence. This is Tate, Longman's friend. Two men doing their job. Bending a man's mind and breaking a man's heart. Their tools, a tank, a man, and the insidious venom of words.
You've never loved her, have you? What the hell have you made me do?
What happens when you consciously bend a man's mind and warp it forever, maybe?
Una, it's amazing, isn't it, the effect of pregnancy on a woman. She's been shuffling up and down those stairs for weeks.
What happens when you deliberately turn a man into a monster? Perhaps for always.
Mrs. Longman, I really don't think you should go home alone.
He's been near enough to murder before. What difference is there in tonight?
There might be. I'd rather you didn't risk it.
It's a good movie.
That was so early in the piece.
It
when
was.
You think about
63, was it?
1963,
Yes.
and it's a frightening film because it shows the potential of that sensory deprivation chamber to actually take people to the brink.
Well, there's
And
always
you
been
change-
that.
So I can't help but feel, Aspasia, that
Yes.
it must have been utilised in MK Ultra,
Well,
the search or the
who
battle
knows?
for the
We're
human
just,
mind.
we're
Thank you,
just
William
making things up
Sokin.
now because we don't really
All that
know.
allegedly.
Sure.
You see that connection.
you
Why
can
wouldn't
see
it have
it,
been
yeah.
used as an
Well, who
interrogation
would have
tool
used-
or a brainwashing tool?
Who would have, who would need something like that,
Maybe John C. Lilly went out of his official programming, he seems to have been a rebel in a sense,
Sure.
and seems to. But I'm sure there's a parallel line that crosses with Andrei Puharich.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Definitely.
and the Council of Nine.
Absolutely.
So I think we need to get the great sinister forces, Peter Levine,
We do.
back
We need to get him back
to explore this topic even further, because we are alleging a lot of material.
We're not.
Here. We don't.
Well, I was saying we don't
know.
know, but I'll tell you now, it wouldn't be a bunch of teachers that would use that.
Do you think with originally all that money was poured into a program for people to advance and expand their consciousness?
No, everything that comes out, it's
and make them
always
throw away capitalism.
Well, who's got the money to do experiments like that?
Yeah, well,
the military-industrial complex.
Or the private sector, which we're seeing today,
more so
that
now,
uses
the private
government
sector,
contracts to elicit. So things got a little out of control here. And I know ages ago on the podcast, early in the piece, in the evolution of Down South Anomalies, we spoke about, and this is our X-rated section, well, our R-rated, maybe our M-rated, so removed children from the room. We spoke about the notion of interspecies relationships when it came to John C. Lilly. We had him up there with that sex report, was it?
The Kinsey report.
Yes.
Yeah.
And after looking at a great BBC documentary, The
Sure.
Girl and the Dolphin, I think it's called, you'll have to find that. It sits on anyway, we'll show a little
YouTube,
trailer for that. It sits on YouTube.
So here was the thing was, and it was a fascinating story that they got this house. It was 3 stories.
Yeah, three
story,
and they flooded.
And they flooded the whole house. It kept
in the end, they flooded the entire place, but initially.
Yeah, they kept a section where this woman, Margaret, could interact with the dolphin.
And she just appeared on Lily's doorstep.
Yeah.
And she was really fascinated in dolphins, and she had the time. She ended up living in that house.
I know.
It was decommissioned.
Oh, really?
Brought up 3 children there.
Without the water.
Without the dolphin.
Okay. Without the dolphin and the water. But at the time, she was actually, her job was to try and teach the dolphin to speak.
Which sounds absurd because that whole notion of it's just mimicking like a parrot. Do we know if a parrot truly understands what it's saying to you?
I don't know. Well, do we know? We know Coco, the gorilla.
Understood in a way.
No, not in a way. Understood, had a vocabulary.
Still, are we anthropomorphizing them?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, they're kind of anthropomorphic. They're so close to us, gorillas and apes.
And I think at this point in time in the mid-60s, if I can interrupt you there, not rudely, but at this point in time, when they were doing this study, Margaret really took it over. She took over the workload. She was there 24/7.
Yeah, I think she got a little bit obsessed.
I think she lived there for a year and a half.
Yeah, right. She must have had pruny fingers.
Lily was in the float tank.
Yeah.
She had little ledges she could get up onto and talk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Lily was in the float tank taking more and more psychedelics and ketamine.
Yeah.
And whether he consciously or unconsciously, because of that initiation ceremonies he was using so repetitively, he just sort of disappeared from the research and got more into this solid state entity.
Yeah. And left Margaret to her own devices. Now, Margaret, she, the problem with this male dolphin was his name was Peter.
Yes.
Peter. Was got to a stage where he was adolescent, and of course there was horny as. I mean, let's just not and this is why Bubbles disappeared off out of Michael's because he got to an adolescent age and they're just out of control. They just want to.
This is why the crew on the 70s highest funded children's show, Lancelot Link.
That's right.
Had to,
Well, the apes had
pleasure
to
pleasure them before they could start work for the day.
Because they couldn't think of anything except having sex. They're not.
I think Peter was a bit like that too.
Yeah, he was. He was totally, not concentrating on what he was supposed to be doing because he was as horny as hell. And so what she had to do and what she used to do, it's like, well, I've got to do it. Otherwise, we're never going to get to the work that we're doing, to the experiments of trying to learn language. I'm going to have to, pleasure this dolphin, get that over and done with and get on with the job. So she was kind of a practical person doing what she had to do to advance the work. But, you know, other people...
And she said she felt nothing.
No, it was just...
Maybe a bit of sensuality, but nothing else. For her, it was to advance the work, as you just stated.
You know, she just got on with it. She got on with the job that she had to do. But then when people found out about it, you know, it's like if you're not as dedicated, you don't really know what's involved.
It's great headline stuff, isn't it?
It's absolutely headline grabbing, you know.
It's when Weekly World News became real for once. Can I digress here?
Sure.
Back to our
boring stuff,
1963.
because this is what people want to hear, I'm telling you now.
And we'll get to Margaret in a minute.
Yeah.
We've got some footage here too, and a bit of personal testimony. She's been incredibly transparent and honest about it from day one.
Yeah.
So it's not as salacious as human beings want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Did they get much further in terms of like breaking that barrier between dolphin and human communication? I don't think so. But I did have a moment, and you know this for a fact, where the English DJ Russ Drewbury was doing, was doing an interview with Jean-Jacques Perrin, one of the Perry and Kingsley, the trio of Moog artists that did novelty Moog records.
Moog Indigo.
That's right.
That's the album.
Well, that's his solo album with the incredible track E.V.A. Eva. Yeah. An incredible Moog track. But anyway, he said that he was employed in a classified program by the French military to see if he could communicate with dolphins via electronics and recreate sounds through the synthesizer.
Right. But can I just say something quickly here? You know, we can't talk to each other and we speak the same language. We can't communicate with each other. We can't get on the same page as each other. And you have to try and teach another species. And here's the thing too. I mean, you have to capture this animal. You have to put it somewhere.
Put it through so much
and
stress.
We don't really know.
And destroy its natural instincts.
That's not what it's supposed to be doing. That dolphin was supposed to be swimming around in the ocean, you know, capturing female dolphins and
eating other fish. Dolphins are not the gorgeous, soft animals they're made out to be.
Baby dolphins.
They operate in packs.
Eating baby dolphins.
They operate in packs.
They're out of control.
They can be really sociopathic at times.
Vicious. And here's the thing is, like, you know, there's certain animals in popular culture that have been demonized, like sharks, right? And wolves. And then you've got dolphins that are supposed to be, you know, they're like amazing, and everybody wants to, swim with the dolphins. And, you know, the stories are told about how dolphins save, you know, people that go overboard, sailors and whatnot, people in the ocean, and they save them from sharks and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, sure, they've done that, but they've also killed people. You know what I mean? It's out of control. There's, you know what? I think if we can put the link up to that for people to go and listen to what dolphins are really like, it will just
let's put that link in there. We'll put the link to the BBC documentary with Margaret
it'll be there.
Let's have a little look at Margaret, but let me just finish up. That Mind Benders film was directed by Basil Reardon. It was adapted into a book by the screenwriter James Kennaway because it was something that actually had a bit of success, even though it was distributed by AIP, American International Pictures, and shared a double bill with Operation Bikini. So, you know, it really didn't get the day in the sun.
No, it wouldn't have got the traction that it needed.
But here's this documentary. We'll put a link to it. You can watch it straight up the cast.
Something else was affecting her work with Peter.
And there you go.
I think it should be entitled The Girl Who...
No.
Not talk to the dolphin.
Well, she trained the dolphins to mimic as best as they could.
Yeah.
But they had to use...
Well, they've got a different voice.
They had to use the blowhole at the top. Now, dolphins do not breathe automatically like we do.
No.
They have
No, of
to
course
work on that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Sure.
they're mammals. They're warm-blooded, so
yeah.
they need that oxygenated
Of course,
blood.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what happened to all of them in the end when he ran out of funding? They went back to San Francisco. They were living in literal bathtub tanks.
Oh, that's horrible.
Which is horrific.
Oh, absolutely.
They all committed suicide.
The
they
Dolphins.
all went down to the bottom of the
And
tank
didn't come
and
back
didn't
up
come
again.
back up to breathe.
Yeah.
So that veterinarian
Mm.
was absolutely right. This might be okay for you, Margaret, with a fascination and
Yeah.
obsession,
Yeah.
and believe that you're actually studying them.
Doing
But
something.
doing that to that animal
Yeah.
is wrong.
Yeah.
It's like going out the door here and all the signs say, do not feed the wildlife.
Yeah.
The moment you start doing that is the moment you're in trouble.
Well, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
You're okay. You're fine because
And
you're
this is-
getting to go up close to them. You're feeding them. You're getting what you need from them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then if you stop feeding them, then it all goes to
So I think it's
hell
important not to
because
feed
you're-
Sasquatch because you'll end up in real strife there.
because you're actually intruding and
Like
mucking
Timothy
around with their
Treadwell.
whole lifestyle.
I don't think Treadwell ever fed them until the very end of his
Well,
adventures.
he
Then
was
they
the
fed
food.
on them.
Yeah, he was the food.
So Lilly then dissipates, but you know what the interesting thing is? He was able to convince NASA to fund that property and those experiments.
Right.
He was one of the first pioneers on board for SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So he had gone beyond the notion of just communicating with another living species on the
Right.
planet.
Yeah.
He wanted to actually find the God particle and talk to it.
Right.
And so he led himself to believe that he had
Right.
through the ketamine, the sensory deprivation research, the LSD. And once he got past the solid state entity, which he said as a warning to humanity, which really does sound like AI, that we should get rid of that. We should dispense with that because that will take us over
Right.
and take us into a world that's more suited to it, a cold, lonely, disparate, silicon-based life.
Right.
That the warm life we need is working in harmony with the planet. Literally, the Gaia theory
Yeah.
is what he derived on. But then he found this thing that he called Echo, and it was the Earth Coincidence Control Office.
Right.
And it ran in harmony like the yin and yang at the same time.
Right.
And it was the thing when you are doing this research, and you know it as well as I do, that higher frequency moments allegedly, apparently, appear to occur in terms of synchronicity.
Sure.
So this was the Coincidence Control Office, Earth's Coincidence Control Office. And then beyond that was this massive intellect. But he got the acronym happening for that, ECHO. And I thought initially, oh my God, was he talking about the Mondo Carne?
Avec le regret de n'avoir que demain.
There are more things in heaven and earth, and between sunset and dawn, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Echo is a wild teenage ride through the back streets of Stockholm. Echo is a peaceful walk in a monastery in Greece. The unusual and terrifying nature of this film may frighten you.
So we won't go much further. It's definitely not that Echo. But
I think it might be. There might be elements of it.
I'm sure there is. I mean, that was the beautiful sort of mimicry of the mondo cane genre, invented by two profound Italians, Jacopetti and Prospetti, in the early 60s with their first film, Mondo Cane. Now, they wanted to show reality and juxtapose it.
Well, it's the exotic. So in the West, you know, back then too, it's like you didn't know what was going on in, you know, people eating different foods and things like that. So what they did, they took you on a journey throughout the world to watch.
This is your original soundtrack album.
Rizzo
Ortolani. For Echo.
Yeah.
And here is my signed copy of LSD by Timothy Leary. I met him in the early 80s when he was out here talking. What a cover. Yeah. No, he wasn't. He was going up on the podium as a writer and a lecturer and a talker and discussing things.
Anyway, so Mondo Cane is about, you know, looking at other cultures and their weird, the food they eat, the way they live, you know, also what is different to us, you know, and the mundane, and that's the exotic.
Yes.
It's deemed exotic, but for the people who actually live that, it's not. It's just them.
I wonder if the solid state entity and Echo are like John C. Lilly's Valis to Philip K. Dick. Because he had that moment again, but he was on Quaaludes.
Well,
you know what I mean?
You
Quaaludes.
Know, it's
is it delusionary or
no,
is it reality?
I mean, what's the other? What our other guy that you were supposed to perform with and you didn't get a chance to?
Oh, Terence McKenna.
Terence McKenna. I mean, he said the only time he ever, you know, conversed with the you know, gods or aliens or whatever was when he was on drugs.
When he was on ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, well, it's a drug, right? So that was the only time. Well, it's still a drug.
Does the West call it a drug?
Well, yes, of course it's a drug.
Now, there's much
It's a mind-altering.
I mean, the amount that Lilly actually got into pop culture and was predictive in a sense. Ken Russell, 1980.
In the basement of one of the country's leading medical schools, Dr. Edward Jessup, candidate for a Nobel Prize, is conducting the most dangerous experiment in the history of science, and the subject of the experiment is himself.
Ask him what kind of an experience I can expect. It's blacked out. What happens during these blackout periods is you get the feeling of phenomenal acceleration, like you're being shot out over millions, billions of years. Time simply obliterates.
Now, I'm asking you to put the experiment off until we understand a little more in order to minimize the risk.
Wait.
I'm really frightened.
What the hell was that?
We could be screwing around with this whole genetic structure. Now, how do we stop this?
Millions of years stored away in that computer bank we call our minds. We have got trillions of dormant genes in us, our whole evolutionary past. Perhaps I've tapped into that.
I'm a professor of endocrinology at Harvard Medical School. I'm an attending physician at the Peter Bent Brigham Hospital. And I'm not going to listen to any more of your mumbo-jumbo. I'm going to show you to a radiologist.
Because I believe it. I want this thing stopped.
The most terrifying experiment in the history of science is out of control.
Isn't that the only way we progress? Someone has to take that leap.
That film could have been so astounding. It just sort of missed the mark, didn't it, Ken Russell? But you still enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
I love incredible sequences and beautiful. Where else did John C. Lilly go? Well, straight into the heart of the gameplay world very early in the piece in the 80s for Sega.
So if you've never played this before, I can guess what you're thinking. Aw, look at the cute little Dolphin game. I bet this is a nice game for kids. But in reality, Echo the Dolphin is one of those unique moments in gaming with the psychological equivalent of being thrown into a sensory deprivation chamber for a few weeks. This game will plummet you deep into the darkest corners of your subconscious and test the limits of your sanity. As the cartridge loads up, Echo will jump straight into your heart and then twist it like a dirty sponge. Plain and simple, this dolphin...
You know what blows my mind there, and he makes no reference in that entire review, which goes for another 40 minutes to John C Lilly whatsoever, but he brings up the sensory deprivation tank.
Sure.
And it wasn't really to the second installment or even the third one, The Tides of Time, the very final one that they did in the Echo trilogy for gameplay, that Echo became, the Dolphin itself became a time traveler.
Right.
And all this metaphysical, transcendental stuff, because Lilly in the end believed on ketamine and in that tank that this higher, massive intellect beyond Echo, beyond the solid state entity, was actually assisting him to travel through the universe.
Yeah.
So quite astounding when you think about it. Now, dolphins and the aquatic and mammalian life of planet Earth have certainly been abused. Oh, I thought I had that on. Excuse me.
Early last year, at the beginning of Russia's war against Ukraine, the United States Naval Institute found evidence of potential dolphin training camps near a Black Sea naval base. Satellite imagery revealed that 2 dolphin pens had been set up at the entrance to Sevastopol harbor in the Crimea. The dolphins were believed to have been moved to the area at the start of the Russian invasion and are likely still being used to protect the naval base from underwater attacks. But the use of military dolphins is nothing new. During the Cold War, both the US and Russia deployed dolphins and other marine mammals to protect and assist their navies. According to the US Navy Marine Mammal Program, dolphins and sea lions were credited for being highly reliable, adaptable, and trainable marine animals, with excellent low-light vision and underwater directional hearing. Bottlenose dolphins in particular have been hailed as the most effective mine detection resource, outperforming all other man-made machines. At the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Russia's main dolphin training camp in the Crimea was transferred to the Ukrainian army, where it eventually fell out of use. By the year 2000, the BBC reported that the Soviet-trained dolphins had been sold to Iran. A Russian newspaper revealed that the chief trainer of the dolphins sold the sea mammals out of desperation, claiming, "I cannot bear to see my animals starve. We're out of medicine, which costs thousands of dollars, and have no more fish or food supplements." According to the BBC, the Soviet dolphins had been trained to attack combat divers, with harpoons attached to their backs, or to drag them to the surface to be taken to captivity. The dolphins could allegedly discern foreign submarines by the sound of their propellers. After Russia's annexation of Crimea, the dolphin training facility was supposedly remilitarized, and in 2019, Norwegian officials discovered a beluga whale wearing a harness with equipment of St. Petersburg written on its strap.
The Navy's Marine Mammal Program turns 65 this year, and over the decades, the program's work has involved training dolphins to spot underwater mines and other hazards, while teaching sea lions how to help attach recovery lines to items sitting in the murky depths. But a recent Navy Times visit to the program's Point Loma, San Diego headquarters reveals far more work going on within the program, which falls under the Naval Information Warfare Center Command. On a recent bright February morning, the dolphins swam together, cavorted, and regularly jumped out of the water as the program's director, Dr. Mark Zitko, explained what the Marine Mammal Program does and has contributed to marine life studies over all these years.
The program started in '59 with 1 dolphin, and there was always a science inspiration for the program. The original desire was to study how fast dolphins can swim, to try and improve ship performance or torpedo performance. Early on, we learned that the animals would make great underwater assistance to Navy and Marine Corps personnel, and that's really what we've been doing ever since. But that original science inspiration has never left the program. We train Navy animals to do simple things under extraordinary circumstances. For them, detecting enemy divers and swimmers or UUVs or enemy mines, finding the target is easy. The animals are natural hunters. We just change what they're hunting for.
In addition to training dolphins to help point out underwater hazards for sailors, much of the program's work has also involved advancing veterinary care to help both the Navy and other human handlers.
I don't believe half of that. They should be reported to the RSPCA, honestly.
I don't think the RSPCA has got jurisdiction out there, but anyway.
It's quite frightening.
Not consensual. Those they didn't put an ad out, and then those dolphins turned up at the recruiting office going, "I want to join." Do you know what I mean? They got them out. They went out there. They captured them, or they were bred in captivity and then started training them. Yeah. Anyway.
So I just wonder, do you think at the end of that,
man is in humanity to man and all the animals on this planet?
Do you think at the end of all of that, that John C. Lilly, is a person that could not have avoided being part of the MK Ultra?
Oh.
I don't think there's any way it could have avoided that. And that search there, like the 1st Earth Battalion, into the metaphysics of the 70s, they well and truly understood behind the scenes of governments, military, science, think tanks.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have
understood that there
billions
was
and billions of dollars over the years researching that stuff.
They understood that there was this other dimension, this other world that we could have access to. We got glimpses of, and they started to actually pursue that.
Of course, they have.
And then it bleeds over, as we saw there with Echo the Dolphin, with Seeger. It's all throughout pop culture.
Yeah.
I mean, what was really happening on the production of the Mindbenders?
Wow.
I mean, just like Mel Brooks said, at times they would actually have the FBI and even the CIA front up to question them about the scripts for Get Smart, because they were revealing the secrets of their intelligence services.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, were they revealing?
I think they were just being satirical and ridiculous.
But were they tapping into the Akashic record?
No. I think the ridiculousness of some of those things just can't help but go into, be picked up on. And then you're showing it as a comedy, and the CIA or the NSA is looking at it going, where did they get that information from? It's like they made it up because it's funny.
But surely, if there is any reality to the fact of telepathy and therefore remote viewing, even in the most innocent, unconscious traits of creativity, that knowledge should bleed out and be apparent. We've seen that with the history of Werner von Braun, writing that book, Flight to Mars, independent entrepreneur, funds a trip to Mars, the only way to get there, with the name of Elon in the 50s. I mean, what is going on? So I think at some stage we need to start cataloguing and documenting in our archives and for Untold Radio the plethora, and you're going to actually get to your history of the UFO in soap operas.
UFOs, no, not in soap operas, in sitcoms.
Sitcoms, okay.
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
Because situation comedies, the sitcoms, it's like, I mean, they're such frivolous, silly things. They're just half-hour entertainment, usually, 21 minutes of entertainment. Yet they, the military comes in and, there's an episode about a UFO, but there's military, people on set making sure that nobody's overstepping and giving out information they shouldn't be. Do you know what I mean? And not because they know something. I think just inadvertently, when you follow some storyline, you could accidentally hit on something that could be real, but you don't know it. And so they're making sure that it doesn't get out there.
Now, there was an egalitarian notion to early broadcasting, and that's when something was out of the cinema after a year or 6 months, it would end up on TV.
Sure.
A scientist makes a fantastic breakthrough, communication with another species, but his secret is stolen for use in an incredible and deadly plot.
Can you find B? Stop B. The thing on B's back will hurt Matt. Stop B now.
George C. Scott stars in The Day of the Dolphin on NBC Saturday night at the movies at 9, 8 Central Time.
And, the saddest thing is that they had, Dolphins were made into assassins from day one when they were working with the military. They used to utilize these small retrofitted nose cones. I'm sure that they're extraordinary in detecting mines.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're extraordinary in taking explosive ordnance and kamikazing themselves as well. Who knows what darkness went on for our aquatic population out there of high esoteric thinkers.
When it comes to, that kind of thing, we always think that everyone and everything is expendable for the good of advancing, science or, military things, because, that's what we have to do.
Yeah. And so here on Untold Radio, even with our cheeky little photograph of Divine at the start, it doesn't matter where your bread is buttered. You're all welcome. We've all got different ways and perspectives.
And thank God we do.
For
what
looking
kind
at
of a
this
boring
world, we
world
need to
would
cherry
if
pick
we
the
all thought the
information.
same?
But we need to get a little bit of history down. We've got it down today because we've done an episode on the extraordinary Dr. John C. Lilly. So what do you think about Lilly at the end of the day?
I don't know. I mean, I'm still, because we don't have all the information,
Nowhere near it.
And he's only going to present what he wants us to think about him. Do you know what I mean? So, but I think he might have been quite possibly, working for the military, and in his experiments stumbled onto this mind expanding thing and then just went off with it, because he does seem to have forgotten the Dolphin. Left Margaret to keep, masturbating Peter so she could get on with her job I'm just calling it as it is, because that's what was happening. And just to try and teach him how to speak and communicate with humans. And he was off into the universe.
I should have got a trailer for Lancelot.
No, we don't need to go there. We don't need to go there.
Because that would have been a hell of a job on the set of that TV
That story
series.
is just insane.
Well,
anyway.
Look, I want to thank all our listeners, all our viewers. Please stay safe. We're going to have an extraordinary year.
We are.
With the work that News Nation's doing and Jake Barber and the Whistleblowers, I think we're in for a few incredible surprises this year.
I hope so, because I'm finally at the stage of please just let it out. I mean, I've been waiting for so long now, since the early 90s.
But you don't need to let it out.
No, I know that.
We've interviewed way too many sincere people.
But do you think that if everybody knew, if everybody was on the same page, we would look at life differently? We would look at what we're doing to ourselves and the planet differently?
Thing. It is probably a little bit beyond our comprehension.
Sure, absolutely.
All our comprehensions, no matter the
I don't totally understand it 100%. Otherwise, I would have been able to work it out by now. I still say I don't know.
It's a fourth or fifth dimension penetrating a third.
Yes.
And even though we know something's occurred,
we don't know
the reality
what,
we're in,
or where, or why.
Because it's so complex. Everyone's narrative is subtly or boldly different.
It's not even complex. I don't think we have the capacity, our brain-wise, to actually understand, because we think we know everything.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks they know everything. But we don't. We only know what we know right here, and even then we don't know every single thing about it. We're still trying to work things out. So how can we know everything that's going on?
I know now, at 66 years of age, that the only thing I do know is how little I know.
Yeah, for sure.
That's about the only real assumption I can make.
And I just love looking at this stuff and learning and just gathering and gathering and gathering. And then I'll die and take it off with me to wherever the next leg of this journey is.
Well, I sincerely hope we're together on that next
That'd
leg.
Be nice.
I want to fuse my atoms with yours.
But I think it's different out there. It's just, we just light and love, hopefully.
Well, thank
God we're just
that.
Nothing.
If there is a God, or if God's part of the electromagnetic spectrum, thank you for your time and your company. You're on Untold Radio. We're down South Anomalies, and we'll join you again next week.
Bye.